Hey all, welcome to PowerApps. My name is Glenn. I also post as Cleve TV on the PowerApps subreddit. Today this video is going to be taking a deeper look at components, Canvas components, and specifically components from inside of component libraries. Components are a really cool feature of the platform, and they can be built to be data-driven, templated, just like Lego pieces that you can use to build large-scale apps more quickly and efficiently. So I want to take a look at this app that I've made just to showcase two simple components really quickly. This is the first component here. This is a gallery on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side we have a second gallery, an embedded gallery within the gallery, and this gallery is displaying buttons. The main gallery is displaying a name and a description of an item. So this is a pretty common scenario where you have a set of records. The set of records has a name or a title field and a description field, and you want to perform operations on those records, right? This could be a menu of some kind or just some sort of presentation of data, um, but pretty common scenario. So right here we have a list of ticket types, Jira ticket types, incident, service request, etc. And the button allows you to select one of these ticket types. And when you do, we see our second component. We have a pop-up message box that pops up. This is the title bar, and the description is showing the description of what we selected, and we can dismiss this pop-up. So we can select task or service request, etc. So those are our two different components. We have our gallery component with buttons, and then we have our pop-up dialog. Then we have our second screen, and we want to take a look at the second additional way we use the component, but in a different way. So we have the same presentation of data here on the left-hand side, but we have a different set of buttons. And on here in this admin center, we can also add new tickets. So we can add a new test ticket with a random description, and we click add, and that gets added down here. We can see that we have sorting here, so we'll add one with AA at the top. So we have a couple. And we can see that we have different operations here. We can now edit this ticket if we want to. This is just a stub, so this is just a notify in PowerFX. We'll show you how we did that in a little bit. And the delete operation is actually implemented. So if we hit delete here, that ticket's gone, or that ticket type is gone now, and we can see that notification coming through. And we can go back to the create ticket screen, and we can see the same data is being presented with a different with a different set of operations against the data. So now we're over in the PowerApps Studio editing our component library, and we can see right here we've got two components in our component library. We've got simple gallery input and modal pop-up. I just want to actually take this moment in the video to point out the fact that these components and the app that I'm showing you are ugly. And there's by no means any way to sugarcoat it. The apps, these are quick and dirty apps and examples that I'm showing you guys. Um, there are dozens, maybe hundreds of other channels on YouTube and blogs uh, of, of content creators that have fantastic content showing you guys how to make beautiful applications, how to import HTML and use CSS to build really beautiful types of front ends and applications. And I want you to use those resources and apply them within these principles and within these development patterns that I'm going to teach you guys on my channel, because I'm not that guy. I cannot, I need to work really hard and copy and copy other people's examples basically to make my applications look better than default. But what my skill set and my strength is going to be in architecture and data design. So the cool thing is we can meld the two and we can make really, really incredible applications. So I just want to point that out. If you guys are sitting there saying, hey, Cleve, these apps are, or this component that you're showing me is ugly, why do I need to sit here and waste time having you teach me how to make something that's ugly? I can make this in 2 seconds. Well, I want to show you how you can use this component, as a reusable Lego building block, to build applications with, and hopefully you understand that principle. So anyway, as a little side note, so let's get back into our component library here and take a look at how we've built this. So let's take a look at our simple gallery component. Um, it consists of just a gallery with a container inside of it. The container has a vertical container containing just our labels for name and description. And then the other side of that horizontal container is our gallery that has our button inputs. Um, this is just a gallery that has button input. So now that we've looked at the controls in the component, let's take a look at the properties. So first we've got items, and this is a data property of input and table with raise on reset when value changes selected. This is named items intentionally. This is to mimic the pattern of the items property within a gallery. We want the users of our component to feel like they're using a gallery when they use our component as much as possible in PowerFX. So we have the items component. This is the table that drives what's rendered in our gallery. We have our ID, our name, our description, and we have a subtable which defines the buttons. Button is defined here by this table, and the record structure is name and key. These are both strings as well. Then we have an on button selected. This is an event property type. This means that you must enable in experimental enhanced component properties. Fire custom events with behavior properties and create user-defined data flow property with property parameters. This must be enabled for you to have access to event and action in this drop-down property type. Otherwise, you will only have data and function. You will not have the ability to add events and actions. Once you've enabled that and you have your event added, you're also going to want to add a parameter. I've called mine UI operation. This is type text, and it's required. The UI operation here is representing the key in the button table of the button that's going to be pushed. So we can see that the onSelect for our button right here calls this function onButtonSelected with this item.key. And that's how we know in our application which button was pushed. The next property is the onGallerySelected. This gives the ability for the application to respond to click events on the gallery itself. So if we look at the onSelect for the gallery, this calls simple gallery input on gallery selected with this item. So the application can respond to a click event on the gallery itself. Again, these are just a couple of functions. This was, a quick example of how to build this template. Um, Hopefully you can see how you can quickly build on this type of pattern or these type of these components that are driven by this, this type of templated data, and add functions very rapidly. You may have noticed there is no indicator for what you have selected with template fill. You could very easily add that. You could also very easily add the ability to toggle it on and off through a Boolean on custom properties. So when you think about building your apps and you think about starting to actually build more modular building pieces, um, I think it really exposes the true underlying power of the Power Platform. Sorry to just steal the thunder there, but um, so that's and then finally, excuse me, the last final property is an output property here. This is a data output property, and it's of type record, and this is the selected piece of the gallery. So this, we're just returning the three pieces that we need. And the reason why we need to do this is because if we just return, if if we just simply return this, right, it's too ambiguous what the structure of the record is. But if we explicitly return the fields that we need like this, then it just makes sense in the application. So right here, we're just, if we can format this, there we go. We're just returning RSI name as the name, description as description, and ID as ID right there. And the cool thing about component libraries, what you can do is they have a screens tab, and you can actually add data into your component library. Here I've added the tickets type table, and now here I've added a screen into my component library. This is just for testing purposes. And I've thrown in my ticket types data source right into my component library so we can test it and make sure that it works. This one doesn't have buttons because we've set up our component such that the gallery is not visible if there aren't any buttons. So it would appear to be invisible. So now let's take a look at how we've implemented the component into our app in PowerApps Studio. So now we're looking at the create ticket screen here, and we can see this is a really simple screen. We've just got our message box component, our navigation main body, which is a horizontal container. This has a navigation component, which is this gallery right here, which is navigating between the screens. A vertical container, which just has our title bar here. And then another vertical container, which just has an additional title bar. And then our component, which is our selector. And if we look at the items inside that, we've got a really simple sorting formula, table ticket creator. And that's all. And let's look at how we've defined table ticket creator. And this is something that I really want to actually make a point of emphasis for the video here, is the way that this component is then utilized in the application here. This is my apps formula, or app formulas formula. And right now we're defining a few tables to drive our UI experience. And the tables are as follows. Right here we've got ticket table types, and right here we're calling show columns on our ticket types table and pulling in the columns that we need. We're renaming our ticket type ID to our generic RSI ID column name. This is the same formula as what's in here, right here. Same thing. The next thing that we're defining is our UI operations templates. This is a table that is defining essentially an enumeration of templated buttons and operations that we want to be able to perform. So this is my edit, delete, and select button right here. And this is essentially defining constants for these things so that we can address them in code without ever having to type, edit, or delete randomly and having to remember these things. We don't want to ever have to compare a string value. We want to have constant values that we use to address within our Power Effects. It makes our code look nice and clean. The next thing that we have is a table ticket creator. So this is the table that we are using in this gallery right here on the create ticket. This is the table ticket creator table right here. And if we look inside here, it's got a buttons, a description, an ID, and a name. a schema that matches exactly the schema that our component expects. And let's look again in the app at how it's designed. The first thing we do is add columns on our ticket types. Remember, our ticket types is just our base data source being pulled in with the columns that we need, already predefined here in the formulas. Then we add a button column, and inside the button column, we add a table, and the table we just add our operation select template. The next thing we add is our admin ticket editor. The admin ticket editor is the table inside of this component's items property right here. Sort admin ticket editor. It's the same base, but the buttons are different. So let's take a look at that again real quick. Inside the admin ticket editor, we're adding ticket types again, same table, but this button table includes the edit and the delete operations. You're probably, hopefully, using your imagination here, and you can think of several, maybe, a dozen different operations that you might want to add. Different types of things that you perform on your records, um, you know, uh, within your applications, things that make sense within your applications, your own use cases, and things like that. But thinking about patterns like these can help you more rapidly develop your applications and more consistently uh, provide a more consistent user experience across all of your applications as well. So let's take a look a little bit further at how we're actually doing the implementation now. Um, let's look at the create ticket screen, and we look at our component here, and we look at how we've implemented these event handlers. So on button selected, right here, now we have a very big formula window. We have a switch operation. We're switching on UI operation. UI operation, remember, is the name of our parameter inside of our component right here for on button selected. UI operation. That's the name of our parameter. This is just an implicit value that will be available to you within this function. This function is called with this parameter, and because it is now available to you in PowerFX. And this value is the key of the button that was pressed. And we're running a switch against our template select operation key because we know that we're handling selects in this window, and we want to handle them by updating the context of our selected ticket type with what we've selected. So when we push that button, we get that message pop up. When you take a look real quick at this message pop up, or the modal pop up as well, this is a really simple dialog. And again, I want to stress how rapidly you can put these together and how basic they look. Now think about how much time you can spend in making these look nice, and then how much time you're saving by making it look nice in here once, and you can now apply this across hundreds of apps, you know. So let's take a look at our modal pop-up right here. This is just a simple container that covers the back of the screen. It's set to its parent's width, and the parent is set to the app screen width. So the entire container will always block the entire screen behind it. That's why we call it a modal pop-up, because it's blocking, excuse me, I said excuse me to my app. It's blocking, I can't click anything behind here. That's why we've dimmed the screen as well. So we can only interact with this dismiss button, and then once that's gone. So the background container is blocked out, and the foreground container just contains two labels and a button. This is just a really simple modal pop-up. The properties for it are title, which is a string, message, which is a string or text, input text, and then there is an onDismiss event, which is what happens when you push the button. And that's how the app can respond and know to hide the pop-up. So really simple pop-up. Again, you could make this in literally minutes, and you could make this much, much, much more complicated. Think about the button input on this gallery. You would probably want to make a pop-up that had more than one operation that could respond and react in more than one way. Maybe it could even have an image or an icon or change colors or change fonts. Really, the sky's the limit when it comes to designing data-driven components like this. So again, in the app, when you push the on select here, we're running a switch against our inputted parameter, against our predefined select key template, or select templates key, better way of putting it. And when we know what it is, we're updating the context with what is selected. Or when we have what we're expecting, excuse me, we're updating the context with what we've gotten. And let's look at the message box. First of all, the message box visibility is just set to know if there's a record. So when you push the select, we update context with this record. If it's not blank, this is visible. And on dismiss, we set it to blank. It's just that simple. And the message box is set to the selected ticket's name and description. So if there is one, and it's got a name and a description, then we see it here. And when we dismiss, we set that to blank. That variable is now set to blank, and our message box is gone. Another look at an example of utilization of the properties here is this label is using my selected property .name. So you can see when I click on a ticket type down here, we're getting this update on our subheader. So we can see that we can react to what's selected. We can react to clicking on the object itself, or we can react to a button click event within the gallery, and we can also react to we can have dynamic buttons within our gallery as well. So if we need to delete these tickets or this ticket type, and we need to make a new one, then we can do so, and it will be available to us immediately. The last thing that I wanted to show, I guess, was just how you can use this just really, really generically. I mean, I guess maybe if you've gotten this far in the video, first of all, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Um, and thanks. Hopefully you enjoyed the content, and this is helping you out in some way, shape, or form. Um, and secondly, just another. You may be wondering, or you may be excited about the prospects of how to utilize this, or you may be wondering, how do I use, you know, name and description that doesn't make any sense. Like um, I my data is numerical, or my data types are dates or something like that, right? Like um, that's okay. I want to show you that these are simply just templates that you can work with and adjust based on what you need, and you can the more time that you put into, um, I guess a good way of putting it is, if you've spent a lot of time working on a Canvas application, then you know just how um, critical and important that time spent is to be focused on user experience, and making sure that your application is pleasing to the user both visually and functionally, and it's adding value to their daily use or of operations. Um, the more time you spend on those screens, the more you realize that this app becomes your baby, and you love it, and you're nurturing it, and you're caring for it, and you want to give it you want the best for it, and and you want everybody to love it as much as you love it too. But you're putting all this time and effort into something that can never be reused, right? So it can never be um, it gets published out into the world and it lives there and it exists there forever, and that application always does that one thing forever. Whereas if you think more outside the box, and you utilize components, the ability to rapidly develop your Canvas applications becomes much more feasible. Um, and the really cool thing is you can use these Canvas app components within model-driven apps as well. I like to call them hybrid apps. They're model-driven apps with Canvas pages inside of them, which is a standard additional page that you can add within model-driven apps. And those Canvas pages can import components from a uh, uh, Canvas component library. So the amount of effort that you put into your components is very, very important, and will pay exponential dividends in the back end of your development in your Canvas apps and in your model-driven apps. So don't sleep on components. Don't sleep on the idea that components can't work with data sources because it's scary. It's not scary. You just need to understand your data and understand your data types and understand how components work. And once you get over that hurdle and get over that hump, then you can really start to take advantage of rapid application development. So if we have, this is just a very simple, this button just makes a collection of random numbers, right? This has nothing to do with my data set. This isn't connected to my table or anything like that. This is just a clear collect on a sequence of 50 with value, with random number, with operation selection. And this could even be a much bigger number than 50 if we want it to, right? This could be 5,000 if we wanted to. And now we still have our component. This component has a lot of records in it now, right? And we still have our select button. Of course, it doesn't do anything on this screen because I haven't implemented anything here. But hope that helps you guys. Appreciate it again, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.